Have you ever felt like someone only realized your worth after losing you? Hi, I'm Jim Rohn, and today I want to talk about a strange but powerful moment when an avoidant finally realizes that walking away from you was a big mistake. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, love doesn't fall apart overnight. It fades under the weight of fear of intimacy, fear of vulnerability, fear of needing someone too deeply. But then you go silent, you stop chasing, and something begins to shift. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 4 emotional realizations avoidants often experience when they finally feel the weight of losing someone like you. This isn't a fairy tale where they come back and everything is perfect. It's messy, it's raw, and sometimes it's the beginning of their emotional growth. But more importantly, this is your chance to finally see how deeply you loved and how much you deserve to be loved back, with clarity, not confusion. If you've ever wondered, do they regret it or do they see what they lost? This video is for you. Subscribe to the channel, stay with me until the end, and remember, your silence is not emptiness. It is self-respect, speaking loud and clear. When an avoidant finally realizes that leaving you was a mistake, it doesn't hit them in a dramatic moment or a teary-eyed confession. No, that realization creeps in during the quiet, when your silence stretches longer than expected, when your energy pulls away, and when they're left alone with nothing but their own thoughts. And it's in that silence that they begin to replay the relationship in their head. At first glance, this might sound simple, but for an avoidant, this is a seismic shift. During the relationship, they weren't truly seeing you, not through the lens of someone ready to receive love. They filtered every interaction through the fear of closeness, through a protective layer that told them to be suspicious of too much kindness, too much presence, too much intimacy. They didn't register your love as safety, they saw it as pressure. And in doing so, they missed what you were giving, the steadiness of someone who chose them over and over again. But silence disrupts that internal defense. Suddenly you're not there. Your presence, your comfort, your consistency gone. And with nothing left to defend against, their mind starts bringing it all back. The hug you gave when they were stressed, the time you remembered their favorite dish without asking, the way you looked at them when they felt invisible to the world. All those moments they once dismissed, now they can't stop remembering them. And that's when the grief sets in, not grief because they lost you, but because they never fully showed up while they had you. And that regret, it's quiet, heavy, and unmistakable. It hits them in the early hours of the morning, in the silence of an unshared life, in the sudden awareness that no one else is doing what you did. For the first time, they're feeling instead of avoiding. And those emotions rush in like a dam, breaking everything they buried, is now uncontainable. They might not say it aloud, but they're feeling it. And whether or not they return, that's not the measure of your worth. You don't need an apology to know you loved fully. You don't need them to come back the right way to know you deserve secure, clear love. Their realization may be late, but your self-respect doesn't wait for their regret. And after the memories come flooding back, after they can no longer deny that you truly loved them, a new phase begins. They start comparing you to others. At first, they don't even realize they're doing it. Maybe they dive into new relationships hoping to convince themselves they've moved on. But underneath it all, something else is happening, a quiet internal journey where each new person gets silently placed beside your memory. And none of them quite measure up. They may try to soothe themselves by saying, I just need someone who doesn't make me feel too close, too overwhelmed. They may try to believe that you were too emotional, too intense, or too demanding. But the more they try to push you out of their mind, the more your presence lingers, because you didn't just love them, you understood them. You stayed when they pulled away. You read their silences, respected their boundaries, and didn't flinch when their wounds showed. And gradually they begin to realize the truth. You are not replaceable. Not because you were perfect, but because you loved them in the exact way their deepest fears needed, gently, patiently, without judgment. New people may be attractive or exciting, but they don't have the shared history. They don't carry the unspoken understanding. They don't know the weight of words unsaid, but you did. And you never used that understanding to manipulate, you used it to love. That comparison starts quietly. They'll never admit it out loud. They might still look fine on the outside, post happy photos, even brag about moving on. But inside, they feel the absence of being truly seen, and that absence grows. Eventually, it leads them to a conflicting place they want to come back, not out of loneliness, but because they finally understand who you were to them. The very things that once made them feel overwhelmed now seem like markers of safe, real love. But this is where your self-respect matters most, because their desire to return, if it comes, won't mean they're fully healed. It doesn't mean they're ready to show up fully. And you are not here to be anyone's healer or emotional placeholder. The truth is, you deserve a love that doesn't require comparison. You deserve someone who sees your worth before they lose you. If they come back, their actions must speak louder than their longing. If they don't, let their comparisons be the proof of how deeply you once loved and how deeply you now love yourself. After silently comparing you with potential replacements and slowly realizing that no one can take your place, another emotional wave hits them, a deep inner conflict between shame and pride. On one hand, they begin to truly see, no longer through the distorted lens of their avoidant attachment, but with clarity. They start to recall each moment you stayed patient, every opportunity you gave them to make things right, all the times you chose love instead of walking away. And suddenly real regret sinks in. They realize you weren't too sensitive, you weren't asking for too much. You were showing up, loving them in ways they've never fully let themselves receive. But on the other hand, there's a pull in the opposite direction, a voice inside whispering, "You're not at fault. People are just too demanding. You don't need to change." That voice belongs to the pride they've protected with avoidant defenses. It doesn't want to feel weak. It fears being exposed. So they find themselves torn. Part of them wants to own the mistake and make amends, but another part clings tightly to the illusion that they did nothing wrong. They may start looking for evidence that justifies their version of events. Maybe they retell the story to others in a way that paints them as the victim. Maybe they hint that you were too emotional or that the relationship was too intense. But deep down, they know these narratives are just delaying the truth. They played a major role in what went wrong. And slowly shame starts to seep in, not loud dramatic shame, but a quiet, steady ache. Because they pushed away someone who loved them in a way they'd never experienced before. Pride says you'll find someone else, but their heart is whispering you lost something real. This is where the core of the avoidant dynamic reveals itself. They don't know how to face their part. They don't know how to say I was wrong. So even as their heart starts to open, their actions may still look closed off. They might secretly hope you'll make the first move again so they don't have to drop their guard. They might wait for a sign from you that it's safe to come back without having to say, "I'm sorry." And this is where your self-respect becomes your compass. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Love doesn't mean doing the emotional labor for both people. Growth can't be outsourced. If they truly want to repair what was lost, they'll show it clearly, directly, and respectfully. But if they're just lingering in the doorway, waiting for you to open it again, that's not love. That's an old pattern, reaching for comfort. You can't heal someone by abandoning yourself. They may be struggling, they may be full of conflicting emotions, but your power lies in what you choose, not in waiting to be chosen. And that is your strength, staying compassionate without compromising your dignity. After all those emotional waves replaying the relationship, comparing you to others, battling between shame and pride, if their feelings were real, something inside them won't stay silent forever. But instead of showing up directly, they'll take the backdoor route, subtle testing. They might like your post, send a casual text with no real purpose, mention an old memory as if it just popped into their mind. It won't be an apology. It won't be a bold "I was wrong." It'll be a soft knock at your door, just enough to see if you're still there. They're testing your response. If you answer, they feel relief. If you stay silent, they retreat again. What's really happening here is emotional safety scanning. They aren't truly ready to step into responsibility or healing. They just want to know if you're still emotionally accessible, if you're still an option. They still haven't dealt with the core wound. They're still protecting themselves with distance. And that's where things get confusing for you. Are they coming back, or are they just soothing their fear of losing me? The hard truth is, many avoidants behave like they want to return, when really they're just trying to calm the anxiety of their own abandonment fears. Your job now is not to decode their signals. Your job is to ask yourself clearly, Do I want to re-enter this old cycle where I carry the hope, or do I choose a new path where clarity and mutual effort are the bare minimum? Self-respect doesn't mean closing your heart. It means refusing to let your heart be someone's emotional safety net while they refuse to grow. If you've made it this far, thank you. That tells me you're not just loving on autopilot anymore. You're waking up. You're learning to put yourself at the center of your own story, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because here's the truth. Most people won't say out loud when an avoidant comes back. They rarely bring certainty. What they bring is confusion, mixed emotions, and sometimes a half-open door, not to step through it, but to keep you near. Just long enough to soothe their fear of being left. But you weren't made to be someone's emotional placeholder. You are not a test run. You are a human being with a heart with value, with the right to be loved in a clear, safe, and committed way. So whether they return or not, let that be a measure not of your worth, but of their readiness to show up fully and love well. If this video gave you clarity, be sure to subscribe for more insights on emotional healing, attachment styles, and conscious love. And if you feel called, share your experience in the comments. Your story might just be the light someone else needs to find their way home to themselves. Until next time, remember this: real love never costs you your self-worth. It lifts you.